1975, 7:15 in the evening. Nobody, not the referees, not the grandmasters, not the television producers, not even Chuck Norris himself, expected one arrogant challenge to become the most unforgettable lesson ever witnessed inside a martial arts arena. It wasn't supposed to be a fight. It was supposed to be a celebration of discipline, respect, honor, and the lifelong pursuit of mastery. More than 20,000 spectators filled every seat. Hundreds of journalists occupied the front rows. Television cameras from across Asia, Europe, and America prepared to broadcast every moment live. Outside, thousands more stood behind barricades. Many knew they would never get inside, yet they remained, just hoping to hear Chuck Norris's name echo through the arena walls. Inside, the atmosphere felt electric. Karate masters sat beside kung fu grandmasters, Olympic boxers, judo champions, taekwondo instructors, military officers, film directors, students who had dreamed for years of seeing Chuck Norris with their own eyes. Some carried notebooks, others carried cameras. Many carried only hope because they believed tonight would change their lives. Backstage, far away from the applause, Chuck Norris sat alone. No photographers, no interviews, no entourage, only a wooden chair, a white towel, a cup of hot green tea. His black training uniform was perfectly simple. No expensive embroidery, no medals, no trophies, only discipline. His eyes remained closed, his breathing slow, steady, controlled. Every inhale peaceful, every exhale silent. A nervous volunteer peeked through the doorway. He whispered, "There he is. I can't believe it's really him." An older stage manager smiled. "Don't interrupt. He's preparing." The young volunteer expected to see a superstar. Instead, he saw a student still learning, still practicing, still searching for perfection. A gentle knock. Chuck opened his eyes. An elderly organizer, Master Wong, entered quietly, his hands folded respectfully. "Master Norris, the arena has never been so full." Chuck smiled softly. "I hope they leave better than they arrived." Master Wong laughed. "Most people come here to watch someone win." Chuck slowly stood. "I came here so nobody needs to lose." Master Wong looked at Chuck for several seconds, then quietly nodded. "That's why they call you Master?" Chuck gently shook his head. "No, they call me Chuck." The lights suddenly dimmed. The arena exploded with excitement. The announcer's voice echoed like thunder. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder of Chun-Kuk-Do, Chuck Norris." The building shook. More than 20,000 people rose to their feet. The applause was deafening. Children shouted his name, veterans saluted, old masters smiled quietly. Chuck walked into the center of the exhibition floor. He bowed, first to the audience, then to every Grand Master, then to the referees. Only after showing respect did he begin. No music, no fireworks, no dramatic entrance, only movement. His punches were invisible, his footwork looked effortless, his balance perfect, his timing impossible. Every strike stopped exactly where it needed to, not an inch farther. 20,000 people forgot to blink. The demonstration ended. Silence. One heartbeat, then the loudest applause the Hong Kong Coliseum had ever heard. People stood on their chairs. Journalists rushed toward the ring. Photographers fired hundreds of flashes. Chuck bowed once more, turned, and quietly began walking toward the tunnel. Then, a voice shattered the applause. "That's enough." Everything stopped. Every head turned. A tall man rose slowly from the front row. Broad shoulders, black uniform, cold eyes, absolute confidence. He climbed over the ropes, never looking away from Chuck Norris. Whispers spread across the arena. "It's him, StevenSeagal, he actually came." A television commentator lowered his microphone. Another whispered, "This wasn't on the schedule." Steven walked to the center of the mat, slowly removed his jacket, dropped it at Chuck's feet, then grabbed the announcer's microphone. Nobody stopped him. His voice echoed across the silent arena. "For years, the world has worshipped a myth." He pointed straight at Chuck Norris. "You fooled Hollywood. You fooled the newspapers. You fooled these people." His finger never moved. "But tonight I'm ending the biggest lie in martial arts." The crowd gasped. Steven took another step. "So, tell me, Chuck Norris, are you a real fighter or just the greatest actor ever filmed?" Boos erupted. Some spectators shouted angrily. Referees rushed forward. Master Wong immediately stood. The chief referee reached for the microphone. Steven pulled it away. "No. Let him answer." Television cameras zoomed in. Journalists forgot to write. 20,000 people watched one man, Chuck Norris. He didn't frown. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at Steven, then at the thousands watching. Finally, he stepped forward. Only once. Close enough for Steven to hear him. His voice was so calm that the entire arena leaned forward to catch every word. "So," Chuck smiled gently, "are you finished talking or are you still trying to convince yourself?" The smile vanished from Steven's face. The arena fell into absolute silence. The arena didn't breathe. More than 20,000 people remained frozen in absolute silence. StevenSeagal still held the microphone, still pointed at Chuck Norris, still smiling as though the greatest victory of his life had already begun. Chuck never moved, never frowned, never answered with anger. Only calm, the kind of calm that frightened the wisest men far more than shouting ever could. Steven laughed. "So, that's it? The legendary Chuck Norris has nothing to say?" The audience watched Chuck waiting for an argument, for an insult, for revenge. Instead, Chuck slowly bowed, not deeply, only enough to acknowledge another martial artist. Steven laughed louder. "You bow because you're afraid." Chuck quietly smiled. "No. I bow because respect doesn't depend on the person standing in front of me. It depends on the man I choose to become." Several Grand Masters quietly nodded. Steven rolled his eyes. "Save the philosophy. I didn't travel across the world to hear a lecture. I came to expose the biggest fraud in martial arts." The crowd erupted. Boos echoed across the arena. A referee quickly stepped forward. "Mr. Seagal, this event is an exhibition." Steven ignored him. His eyes never left Chuck. "I've watched your movies. I've watched your interviews. I've watched people worship you as though you're unbeatable." He slowly walked around Chuck like a wolf circling prey. "You move fast. You smile for cameras. You impress movie directors." He stopped only inches from Chuck Norris. "But I don't believe any of it." He leaned closer. "I believe you're the most overrated martial artist I've ever seen." The audience exploded again. Some people shouted angrily, others screamed Chuck's name. Master Wong quietly closed his eyes. An elderly Japanese grandmaster whispered softly, "Pride has entered the arena." Steven suddenly grabbed Chuck's folded jacket lying beside the demonstration mat. He held it high, then dropped it onto the floor. The audience gasped. One television commentator removed his headset. "I can't believe he just did that." Another whispered, "He's trying to provoke him." Chuck looked at the jacket, then quietly bent down, picked it up, folded it again carefully as though nothing had happened. Steven laughed. "That's it? I insult you, I embarrass you, I throw your jacket on the ground and you still smile?" Chuck gently dusted the jacket, placed it on a nearby chair, then looked back at Steven. "You've spent several minutes trying to provoke me." Steven smirked, and Chuck answered, "You still haven't succeeded." The smile slowly disappeared from Steven's face. His fists closed tightly. "You think you're better than me?" Chuck quietly shook his head. "No, I think you're fighting the wrong opponent." Steven frowned. "What does that mean?" Chuck looked straight into his eyes. "The man you should defeat isn't standing in front of you. It's standing inside you." The arena became silent again. One reporter forgot to write. Another photographer lowered his camera because nobody wanted to miss a single word. Steven's breathing became heavier. His jaw tightened. "You talk like a philosopher." Chuck smiled. "I speak like a student." Steven laughed angrily. "A student?" Chuck nodded. "The day I stop learning is the day I stop being Chuck Norris." The chief referee finally stepped between them. "Gentlemen, this exhibition was never intended to become a fight." Steven immediately interrupted. "Then let the whole world see the truth." He pointed toward Chuck. "If he's what everyone claims he is, he won't refuse." The referee turned toward Chuck. "Master Norris, the decision is yours." 20,000 people held their breath. Chuck slowly looked around the arena. He saw young students holding notebooks, little children watching with hope, old grandmasters waiting quietly. Then he looked back at Steven. "I'll accept." Steven smiled triumphantly. The audience erupted. Chuck raised one hand. The noise stopped. "But first, I need one promise." Steven laughed. "Anything." Chuck's expression never changed. "When this demonstration is over, I don't want you to remember my technique. I want you to remember this lesson." Steven smirked. "You'll be the one learning." Chuck smiled. "We'll see." The chief referee raised his hand. The bell was lifted above the ring. 20,000 people rose to their feet. The next sound would begin a demonstration no one would ever forget. Bell had not yet rung, yet more than 20,000 people were already on their feet. Nobody blinked. Nobody whispered. The world's greatest martial artists sat in complete silence. Television cameras zoomed closer. Reporters forgot to write because everyone knew the next few moments would become history. The chief referee stepped between Chuck Norris and StevenSeagal. He raised both hands. "This demonstration ends immediately if either man uses excessive force." Chuck bowed respectfully. Steven didn't. His eyes never left Chuck. The referee looked at both men, then slowly lowered his hand. The bell rang. Steven exploded forward. No hesitation, no respect. Only aggression. His right hand shot toward Chuck's face, fast, powerful, confident. Nothing. Chuck wasn't there. A gasp swept across the arena. Steven immediately turned. Another strike. Nothing. A spinning kick. Air. An elbow. Nothing. Chuck moved like flowing water. Never hurried. Never tense. Never wasting a single movement. 20,000 people stopped breathing. Steven attacked again. Harder. Faster. His combinations became more aggressive. Punch. Kick. Elbow. Palm strike. Everything missed. Not by feet. Not by yards. By inches. Only inches. The audience couldn't understand how Chuck already knew where every attack would land. Backstage, a television producer shouted, "Replay it." The technician slowed the footage, then slowed it again, then again. He stared at the monitor. I still can't see when he moved. Steven's breathing became heavier. Sweat rolled down his forehead. His confidence started fading. "You stop running," he shouted. Chuck smiled gently. "I'm not running. I'm waiting for you to slow down." Steven roared, "I'll never slow down." Chuck quietly answered, "That's exactly your problem." The Grand Masters watching ringside exchanged glances. One elderly master whispered softly, "Chuck isn't fighting his body." Another nodded. "He's fighting his ego." Steven charged again, this time putting everything into one final attack, his strongest punch, his fastest step, his full weight. The audience rose higher from their seats. Chuck finally moved. One step, one redirection, one trap. Steven's arm was gently guided past Chuck's shoulder. Chuck pivoted. His left hand controlled Steven's wrist. His right hand stopped less than 1 inch from Steven's chest. The arena froze. Chuck could have ended the fight. Everyone knew it. He didn't. Not one sound, not one cheer, only silence. Absolute silence. Steven looked at Chuck's hand, then at the fingertips hovering near his throat. For the first time since entering the arena, his confidence disappeared. Chuck slowly lowered his hands, stepped back, then bowed. The gesture stunned everyone. He quietly asked, "Do you know why I stopped?" Steven couldn't answer, his breathing still heavy. Chuck smiled gently. "Because the greatest victory isn't defeating another man. It's defeating the anger inside yourself." The arena remained silent. Chuck continued, "If I knock you down, the audience might applaud." He paused. "But if you walk out a wiser man, both of us win." Steven slowly looked around the arena. 20,000 faces watching him. Nobody laughed. Nobody mocked him. Nobody celebrated. For the first time, he realized the man standing in front of him hadn't been trying to beat him. A tear formed in the corner of Steven's eye. He slowly lowered his head. "I came here to prove you were just an actor." Chuck quietly smiled. "And what did you discover?" Steven answered in almost a whisper, "I discovered I've spent my whole life trying to defeat other people." He looked into Chuck's eyes, "But never my own pride." The entire arena fell silent once more. Chuck slowly extended his hand. "There is no shame in learning. The only shame is believing you have nothing left to learn." Steven stared at Chuck's hand, the same hand that could have defeated him. Instead, it offered respect. Slowly, he reached forward. Their hands met. The Hong Kong Coliseum exploded into thunderous applause, but ChuckNorris still had one final lesson for everyone inside that arena. The applause rolled through the Hong Kong Coliseum like thunder. 1 minute, then another, then another. Still, more than 20,000 people remained standing. Nobody wanted the moment to end, because everyone inside that arena had just witnessed something far greater than a martial arts contest. They had witnessed the difference between winning and greatness. StevenSeagal still held Chuck Norris's hand. His head remained lowered, not because he had been defeated, because for the first time in his life he understood how much he still had to learn. His voice trembled. "I've won so many fights. I've collected trophies, medals, titles." He slowly looked into Chuck's eyes. "But tonight I realized I never learned the first lesson of martial arts." Chuck smiled gently. "And what lesson was that?" Steven answered, almost in tears, "Humility." The audience didn't applaud. Not yet. The silence meant more. Chuck slowly placed one hand on Steven's shoulder. "A man who admits he was wrong has already become stronger than yesterday." Steven nodded. "I came here to embarrass you." Chuck smiled. "No, you came here looking for yourself." Steven frowned. Chuck continued, "You simply didn't know it." The chief referee walked forward. He looked at both men, then quietly said, "In more than 30 years of officiating, I've seen champions. I've seen knockouts. I've seen broken bones." He paused. "But tonight, I witnessed the rarest victory of all. A victory without hatred. The Grand Masters quietly nodded. Chuck turned toward the audience. 20,000 faces looked back. Young students, old masters, champions, children, parents, dreamers. Chuck slowly spoke. When I was a young boy, I believed martial arts were about learning how to fight. He smiled. My teacher corrected me. He told me, Chuck, the day you become strong enough to hurt everyone is not the day you become a master. He paused. The day you become strong enough to protect everyone without hating anyone, that is the day you begin to understand martial arts. The arena fell silent again. Steven slowly stepped forward. He faced the audience. I owe everyone an apology. He looked toward Chuck. I mistook confidence for arrogance. I mistook strength for violence. I mistook respect for fear. Another pause. I was wrong. Chuck smiled warmly. There is no shame in being wrong. The shame is refusing to change. Steven nodded. I'll remember that, Chuck. Chuck quietly answered. I hope you remember something else. Steven looked up. Chuck smiled. Never enter a room trying to prove you're the strongest. Enter trying to leave the room better than you found it. At that moment, a young boy wearing a white kung fu uniform ran to the edge of the competition floor. He couldn't have been older than 10. His voice echoed across the silent arena. Master Chuck. Chuck turned and smiled. The little boy asked, who won the fight? Chuck looked at Steven, then back at the child. His smile became even warmer. The moment he stopped trying to defeat me and started trying to improve himself, we both won. For one heartbeat, the arena didn't move. Then the loudest standing ovation in the history of the Hong Kong International Martial Arts Exhibition shook the building. Grandmasters stood, referees stood, television commentators removed their headsets because words could no longer describe what they had witnessed. Steven slowly turned toward Chuck. Thank you. Chuck smiled. Don't thank me. Thank the lesson. Steven frowned. What lesson? Chuck quietly answered. The lesson your pride almost prevented you from learning. Years later, people forgot the insults. They forgot the challenge. They forgot the angry words. But they never forgot the master who answered arrogance with patience, hatred with respect, violence with compassion. Because on that unforgettable autumn evening inside the Hong Kong International Martial Arts Exhibition Hall, before 20,000 spectators, Chuck Norris didn't prove he was the fastest fighter. He didn't prove he was the strongest martial artist. He proved something far greater, that a true master doesn't create broken opponents. He creates better people. And when Chuck Norris walked quietly toward the tunnel, the crowd rose once more, not because they had watched the greatest fight, but because they had witnessed the greatest victory. A victory without revenge, without humiliation, without hatred, only honor, respect, and the kind of wisdom that makes a legend live forever.